Hello everyone, today we are taking a look at the GepRC DoMain 3.6. The way they spell it on the website almost sounds like it's supposed to be DoMain. But there's two different versions of this, both 6S. And they use these huge chunkin batteries. These batteries weigh more than most of the quads I fly in the micro arena. But if you're not interested in the 3.6, if you're interested at all, they also have a 4.2 inch version. Kind of odd prop sizes to me. But I don't fly 6S all that much, and I kind of get the draw. Longer flight times, the batteries hold their voltage longer, and you have more grunt, at least in the low end. But I am interested to hear, those of you that do fly 6S on your quads, what's the draw to 6S? But in the meantime, while you're down there typing in the comments, let's take a look at this one. The 4.2 and the 3.6 that I have here, they only come with the DJI O3 video system. So you'll need to have goggles V2, version 2 of the original goggles, or you'll need to have the goggles 2, which is what I'm using. And thus, we got our DJI O3 camera. And right back here is our O3 video system. You can see the little plug I've got right in here, and a little dirt stuck in the side there. We do have access to the USB port for activation and retrieving your video, as well as the SD card for additional video storage. The flight controller, which we really can't see, all we can see is the USB-C port on here, is the Taker F722 SE. It does come with this 3D print up here for an external HD camera if you need that. It does come with these plastic sleeves, which I hear really don't work all that effectively when it comes to protecting the motor wires from prop strikes, but I haven't had any troubles with it. Battery connection is an XT60. TPU prints back here for our antenna holders and placement. You can see there's two up here, one that we're already using, and we have two T-mounts that we could use as well. The motors on the 3.6 prop edition are the Speedix X2 2105.5 2650 kV. Again, 6S. And the props are the Gemfan 3630 tri-bladed props. The carbon fiber bottom plate looks to be 3mm thick, and the very bottom sandwich plate looks to be 2.5mm thick. Front arms are 4mm thick, and so are the rear arms. Specifications say 170mm motor post to motor post. I'll have to take them at a word because my calipers don't go that far. It weighs almost 311 grams. If we add this full SEN 850 milliamp 6S battery, it weighs 452.5 grams. If we use the biggest 6S battery I have, it would be this Tattoo R-Line 1050 version 4. It's 6S. And with that battery, we get 488.5 grams or thereabouts. It comes with two sets of side plates. Mine had the white already on it, but it also comes with black. The side plates weigh 10.5 grams. So you could save 10.5 grams if you wanted to. It comes with two battery straps on the quad, and it comes with two spares. It comes with stickers to put on the side plate, if that's your thing. It comes with a USB-C cable to connect your VTX as well as your flight controller. It comes with two spare prints. I believe these are the prints that go in this little gap here. This one is not 3D printed. This one appears to be rubber. So if you tear those, maybe you go to these 3D prints, but there's only a single hole for mounting these. So maybe these are just for changing where the camera sits. Also comes with another 3D print that you could use for an external HD camera. Comes with an assortment of screws, nuts, and a hex key. And last but not least, it does come with two sheets of stickers. And I must add that GepRC has really stepped up their box game. As you can see, we've got a print in here, and then those boxes I was pulling the accessories out all kind of fit neatly. And then you have this foam piece, which goes over the top, and then the quad would go in there, but you got to take the props off for the quad to fit. But I just thought that was an interesting point to note. We're going to start out with my fast flight. Basically, I'll show you a few different things, and I've also got some crashes. I had one crash where I crashed into the fire pit. A little bit comical, but the main reason why I'm using the 850 is in a tight space like this with all this weight that we're carrying, decreasing the weight overall by using a slightly smaller battery that might be recommended or you might use if you're in a bigger space just made it more manageable. And that little thing through the tree, that was a mistake, but visually when it happened, I thought, well, that was pretty cool, so I got to go with this flight. Please don't crash out. But some additional information. As far as weather goes, it's about 42 degrees. We've got about 12-mile-an-hour winds. The gusts are relatively mild. It is overcast. And you can see we do have some water on the pool cover, so that's always a little bit tenuous. It seems like our weather has not gotten warm enough since we had that really rough spell to really get all that water off the pool cover, so I've had to run that risk here in the last few weeks. On an 850, if you fly slower, so when I say slow, I mean kind of cruising about or exploratory, not terrible slow, like you're trying to just squeeze every minute of flight time. You know, you're still making turns, you're just not doing hardly any tricks or punch outs or any sort of real freestyle. You're just flying about exploratory sort of flight. On the 850, I got 7 minutes and 43 seconds on average. On the 1050, I got 8 minutes and 37 seconds on average. And that's really all I could test for you, unfortunately. They recommend up to a 1300 milliamp battery, but I don't have anything bigger than that 1050. So if I had to guess, I'd say you're probably pushing 10 minutes on a 1300 milliamp, maybe even 11. Of course, you know, battery quality, care, that always matters when it comes to flight time and flight performance. If we don't have battery providing enough voltage, it's going to change all those particular faster sort of or the flight information or stats. This flight is going to be 3 minutes and 46 seconds, I believe. That's what I wrote down in my notes. And as I said, I'll show you a crash reel that I've got back at the desk. It's pretty tedious nowadays to do crash reels, so I don't oftentimes do that, but I do know that I had a few crashes that I think would be important, especially when you're carrying this much weight, that if you're looking to buy a quad like this and get into 6S, one, that's a heavy price to pay. You know, they're not cheap, they're not inexpensive by any stretch. The batteries alone are more expensive, and the quad themselves, depending upon the options that you choose, come in between $480 and $528 is what they have listed right now on their GepRC website. Of course, if you select a different sort of receiver, which I'm running Express LRS, which is one of the cheaper ones, you can get it with GPS as well, so that changes the prices. They do offer Crossfire with the TBS Nano receiver, so you can get that if you choose to. And you can really see one of the things that pays off with that weight is when I do those punch outs over the house, it really doesn't take much. One, we've got a lot of voltage we're pumping through those motors into those props and creating a lot of thrust, so it really doesn't take much of a punch out in order to get way over. And I technically overshoot the spot I tend to try to come down at just because we have so much carry with that weight. And also when I do a more straight vertical punch, you can see how the quad kind of carries away. You kind of get that zero gravity sort of feeling before it starts to descend down. That's something that I really like doing, that kind of flotation, like your zero gravity. Some people always want me to try to do a trick right there, but I just like that fly away with the nose down sort of thing. It's a cool feeling when you're just sitting there. Battery came in just a touch low, 3.4 volts per cell, so maybe shave 5 seconds off that flight to bring it in at 3.5 volts. This does not have any flight audio. I just didn't record it when I was doing kind of the slow, flat, exploratory sort of flying. This is the last minute of that particular flight because, you know, it's a long sort of spell. But this is on the 1050, just out cruising around, and I believe it comes in at about 9 minutes and 2 seconds. So you'll also notice that the weather was better on this particular day. I can't remember all the flying I did. I do know from the looks of the clothes that I'm wearing that, yeah, I'm probably home at lunchtime. Even though it's February, the sun isn't particularly high, but we are getting longer days. We are getting more sun. I've noticed recently that a few minutes after 6 is when it starts to become too dark to fly. So that's something that's nice to look forward to, being able to get out more and enjoy the outdoors, whether it's FPV or some other means. But we're going to come in here at land 902. Yeah, 902. And the voltage comes in right about where we want it to at 3.52 volts per cell with that 9 minutes and 2 seconds. So I probably could have squeezed out 2 or 3 more seconds, but it's not really important at that point. I don't think I mentioned it in the quick specs, but they've got these 3D prints kind of protect your arm ends. That's a nice feature, especially, you know, when you're carrying this much weight. And yeah, it's dirty because I had all those crashes, and I'll play the crash reel, kind of pulling out the most dramatic ones that I find without going through all my flight footage. For those that don't know, I don't tend to just fly these things an afternoon or an hour or a one-day review. I tend to fly them in a series of flights over the course of about a week or at least 5 days of flying, and I'll take out all the batteries that I have that are adequate or that I want to test. And in my particular case, I have 3 each of these, so I would go out for 6 flights and I would run it around, and then I dedicated one particular flight session to just a kind of slow flat flying just to see what flight times are at, because I do think that that's something else that people who are looking at this might want. I did fly it with a GoPro up top, and it really didn't affect, well, I'm using a naked GoPro. I'm actually using the new Flywoo naked GoPro that I just reviewed on the channel a few days ago on that particular flight, and it didn't have a huge impact on the flight time when it came to that slow sort of exploratory flying. Maybe 15 to 10 seconds at most, even though you're carrying an additional, what was it, 20 grams almost now with that new one with the metal case. And it's also using some of the battery voltage in order to be able to fly or power the external HD camera. So if you're using a naked external camera, you won't have much flight time impact. Of course, if you're flying more aggressively, I didn't really test that because I didn't want to break it, because I crashed this quite a bit, as you've been seeing. So GepRC has an interesting design here. Typically, because I'm a micro guy, I would say, the 10 grams we have in side plates, and there's some screw weight there as well, that I wouldn't be for that. In this particular case, the weight isn't hurting us, and it adds a little bit style. I guess the weight technically has to hurt it. All the additional dead, component weight does hurt us in performance and flight time to some degree, but it's probably just going to be really, really minor considering the overall weight. If we wanted to look at everything else, we could say, well, you take these off and you take this off, and you clip this stuff down so that you're cutting down the weight. It's going to have such a minor impact on something this weight flying a 6S battery that it's just not worth it. I do appreciate the fact that they have 2 screws for our camera, so it kind of can lock in the angle. I know that if it just had one and I didn't, really hunker it down, that on several of those crashes that I've been playing, we probably would have had some camera angle changes. So this has the kind of a sandwich plate, which I believe this is all one piece of carbon across the bottom, and then we have the sandwich plate on top, and you can see we can reach these other screws inside, and then we have the top screws. You don't land on this because these pieces have feet on them, so it's nice and flat. We don't come down on our screws. We won't wear them down. This is a little bit exposed though, so if you come down on a rock or you just any hard uneven surface, there is a potential that, I know we have this print here, but still with this amount of weight, when you come down hard, if you don't land very gracefully, say in a crash, an unintended landing, there is potential that we could damage the receiver, might even sever a wire if you have a really sharp edge that you end up crashing down onto, because this is exposed. This is one of the only things that's really exposed. If we look at the camera, at least at the angle I have, it's fairly well protected. If I get square, you can't see the camera lens. It is behind these metal pieces. And then we have the flanges on the top and the bottom that DJI puts on the camera. If you did notice something, I did scratch the lens though. Hopefully I can get that to show up here. There's a little bit of a vertical scratch right above my finger. Yeah, I can't remember when that happened and what crash, but I did notice it. So if you saw that in the flight footage, yeah, it's there. It didn't come that way. It's through one of my several crashes. I think one of the things with the side plates I could worry about, especially in the warmer months, is if you plug in and then you wait for the link to come to your goggles from the O3, that this could heat up. And it might not cool down as quickly when you get flying because it is kind of protected from getting a lot of airflow. They did flare these out, so we're going to get airflow down the side. So that should help if we do get up in the air and it is warm and we aren't able to get flying right away for whatever reason. Maybe we plugged in prematurely and we weren't ready to fly or something like that. So we should get some airflow down through here that hits the VTX, but still, it wouldn't be as much as if this side plate wasn't on. So if you're out in one of those really hot areas, specifically this summer, and you find that it's getting a temperature warning in your goggles before you get ready to fly, you might want to consider just taking off the side plates to see if that helps a little bit. I didn't mention it, but the battery pad is slightly sticky now. It's not nearly as sticky as it was because you can see I've got all sorts of dirt on there. It's a nice thick battery pad, and it does keep us up off the screws so we wouldn't be putting little indents in our battery by hunkering it down. The straps themselves have a little bit of a texture to them as well. So with that 6S weight and that battery between the straps and the sticky battery mat, they should stay in place. I didn't have any problems. Some people some people don't like a mounted battery connector. I like it because, it's bolted down to the carbon fiber and we don't have to worry as much if we were to have a really horrible crash. Maybe we don't get our straps down as tight as we'd like to, and our battery ejects. It really shouldn't pull the wires that are down below here off of, in our case, I think, because it's got a flight stack in there. I don't know if you can see that down through there. There's two boards. There's an upper and a lower board, so we have an ESC down here and a flight controller out top. So that battery connector should go to the ESC. It shouldn't pull on those pads because it is firmly mounted down to the carbon fiber. So really the only weakness I think I can come up with in durability would be the fact that our antenna and receiver are kind of exposed here when we come down for an unintended landing, a crash, or if we're just not very graceful yet when we bring our landings down. Otherwise, we should be pretty fine. I had a number of crashes. Obviously, I didn't break an arm. They don't ship with an extra arm, but that's going to vary depending upon your flying space and your crashing style. You know, do you just go headlong into something, or do you have those reflexes for that last second avoidance to where you're not making quite the impact that you might otherwise? I've always find it enjoyable to fly something different, and for me, 6S is very different. I think this is probably only the 4th or 5th quad on 6S I've flown, and I think the others were 3-inchers, so this has got a slightly bigger prop on it. If you want a 4S version, I don't see one listed. If you're looking for any sort of other video system, I don't see one listed. So this looks like, right now at least, it's exclusively the DJI 3. You would need to have the goggles V2, version 2 of the goggles, or you need to have the goggles 2, the ones that are a little bit slimmer. I think the one that looks the same but also has the battery pack on the back side of the strap, that one will also work, but I don't have those. It did come with XpressLRS version 3.3, so for me, I just let the receiver go into Wi-Fi mode, and then I added my binding phrase. Takes it right up. It's really quick and easy. Wi-Fi mode takes about 60 seconds to activate. I connect to my computer to that Wi-Fi, that short-range Wi-Fi, and load 10.0.0.1. Type in my binding phrase that I already have on my radio. Bingo bango, set my modes. I always get lots of questions that, am I flying the default PIDs? By default, if a quad was sent for review, which this and 95% of what you'll find in the last couple of years, I use the PIDs the manufacturer provides. So I didn't change those. The only thing I put in are my rates. Sometimes if they ship with Expo, I take the Expo off. I don't use Expo. I've never been a fan of Expo. It makes it feel soft. I would rather train myself to have finger Expo than put Expo on the quad. The other changes that I make is I set my modes for the switches on the radio that I like so that I can disarm quickly, or turtle mode, or turn on the beeper. And then I move the OSD elements around so that the people who come to this channel, they know where to look for the OSD elements. They've been the same for years. But everything else, the filters, the PID tunes, everything else that this came with, I use whatever the manufacturer provides, so you should be able to find it on their support section of their website. If you have any other comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the comments section below. I appreciate your time. Thanks for watching.